Hello all, this is the Owl. Or is it? Made in Abyss, binary star falling into darkness has been a, shall we say, divisive game thus far. Some people seem to be having a blast with it, others refunded it fairly fast. I picked it up at full price off Steam because, well, not only am I a certified Made in Abyss nut, but it's basically the series that built this channel. And I mean, the game can't be that bad, right? Tsukushi was involved personally in the development. Now, last time, we took a very brief, spoiler-free look at the Made in Abyss game. Today, we're going to delve a little bit deeper and see if we can't figure out just what the hell is going on here. But before we start, a few things. First up, I am going to approach this organically. I am not going to be speedrunning or doing some kind of pro series here. You'll be getting most of this raw, with footage that I recorded during my first playthrough. Please excuse some of my really silly deaths and clumsy derp-a-derp moments in advance. I haven't used a controller since I finished Pirate Warriors 4, and that was over a year ago. Secondly, I'm not going to be showing every single cinematic, every piece of dialogue, or comparing every single scene to the manga or anime because, oh boy, do we have a lot of ground to cover. With that out of the way, it's time to dive. Our story begins with a brief intro outlining the concept of the Abyss. I will say that this, while it's mostly just simple animations and stills, really does somehow cultivate a very pleasant, rather mysterious mood. And yes, I know fans of the manga or the anime are having a good chuckle and rubbing their hands with glee, knowing what lies ahead. After a lot of introing, we zoom in on the orphanage in Orth. At this point, the graphics are actually rather good. Not mind-blowing, but good. This will change. Yeah, as some people have suggested, this is essentially a Switch port, so maybe I shouldn't have expected something too impressive. We meet Rico, who wants to be a White Whistle, the highest ranking that cave raiders are capable of achieving, and after a lot of dialogue, we get some more cool info on the Abyss. That's basically a panel from the manga that's been coloured, but it's still neat. Yeah, layers, nasty wibbly wobbly curse stuff that hits you if you try to ascend too fast, and is almost certainly based on the bends. Yes, the curse is a game mechanic, a core one going forwards. It's recreated quite faithfully, and can be a massive nuisance. Also, to be perfectly honest, I never twigged onto this character's name before. Is it just me, or does she strongly resemble the wicked stepmother from Cinderella? And after even more dialogue, we get our first quest. And skipping on through, it does mirror the early story of the manga, albeit fortunately without the nudity. We're charged with gathering 10 common relics and get our first taste of the core loop and dual world system. Yeah, this will become much more pronounced later, but for now, we take our first steps outside of Orth and enter Layer 1 of the Abyss. Note that depth gauge on top. That's going to be very, very helpful moving forwards. When it starts turning red, it's time to stop moving upwards. Now, the first time I entered this area, I did not anticipate the pain I was in for. See, I was using keyboard and mouse and the controls. Who designed this? Control to dodge and run, Z to attack. Just how many pinky fingers does this bloody game think I have? I tried remapping them, but then I discovered that the inventory wheel was almost frigging impossible to navigate with a mouse. The sensitivity is way out of whack. So eventually I gave up, dug my dusty PS4 controller out of storage and slapped that in. Then I booted the game up and it crashed. Not a nice friendly crash either. This was a full-on hard lock that not only froze the game, but required a full-on power-down restart. Woof. To be fair though, this was my first and only crash. But still, things did not bode well. Anywho, now that Rico was no longer controlling like a drunk panda, trying to fend off an even drunker panda's amorous advances, I headed on down. This entire section is tutorialized out of the old wazoo, but we get to kill a bunch of spiky ferrets called, what? Mantoyas. Not making the obvious jokes. These critters that infest the first layer aren't too dangerous. They won't bother you until you enter their territory, but a large number can chip your HP down quite fast, and they respawn at an alarming rate. Their attacks also seem to come out of nowhere at times, but they are both very easy to kill and easy to just evade. They also make a decent food source if you get into trouble. I guess they taste a bit like rabbit. Combat is rather Dark Souls-y, reliant on getting in behind things a lot and dodging attacks. There is a stamina gauge represented by the blue line, and you'll need to keep a close eye on it because this, more than almost anything else, is going to get you killed. If you run out at a crucial moment, Rico undergoes a lengthy recovery state where she is completely vulnerable. And if you run out of stamina while you're climbing, you're in for some pain, as she will immediately fall. I tend to forget about my stamina quite a bit, as running drains it rapidly. As we start heading downwards, it turns out that Rico really loves the abyss, so much so that even touching a wall will cause her to grab onto it and give it a bit of a cuddle. This is annoying, but you'll get used to it. There are a metric ton of things to gather and fiddle around with, from the fruit hanging on the trees to rock patches on walls. These give you a variety of stuff, from food and healing items to crafting materials, but they seem to be mostly useless for now, and you're best off just ignoring them. We also get our first taste of the climbing mechanics. They are interesting, and to be honest, I am still learning the ins and outs. Rico can move in almost any direction and can bound around rapidly if she needs to, which doesn't seem to consume more stamina than regular climbing, so use this as your normal climbing technique. But beware vertical movement, and watch that depth gauge. You will get a very distinctive visual indicator when you start to get cursed at least. You can pause and let the curse decay. Not how the actual curse in the manga or anime works, but I'll allow it, as it does make sense from a gameplay standpoint. Another thing to remember is that moving downwards is much, much easier than climbing back up, so plan ascents carefully. Stamina does not recover while climbing, and if you run out, you're probably going to die. Anyway, I continue downwards, collecting relics and either killing or ignoring the Mantoyas. And oh, it's a Venus flytrap. Nope, that'll catch you unawares, and they do quite a bit of damage. These buggers are called vine binders. Move in behind them and they're defenseless. Not all that dangerous unless they catch you by surprise. One thing you'll get used to is that when you gather, it deactivates your weapon and puts it away. so you'll need to re-equip it. Nope, I absolutely did not take a silly amount of damage on several occasions because I forgot this. Once you get 10 relics, you'll get a brief cinematic. That's near as damn it what happens in the manga. Riko needs help lugging all those sun spheres back upstairs, so she calls out for her mate Nat, but finds him being menaced by oh crap, that's a Crimson Splitjaw, a very powerful snake-like beastie from the lower layers. We get a brief made to lose sequence where it hits Riko, sending her flying. Yeah, this is all following the manga really closely, and it gives us another cinematic. Riko, yeah, that's some fun foreshadowing. Can't wait to see how they do that sequence here. But after a QuickTime event that I failed far too many times. Don't blame me, I am a PlayStation user, but all the prompts are designed for an Xbox controller for some bloody reason. Riko runs a bit further, dumb man toyers, and is saved by, ooh, I wonder who that could be. The incinerator looks kind of amazing. Well, let's go and see you know who. The models are pretty spot on, and while I'm going to skip a lot of dialogue here, yeah, this game tends to vomit it at you through a fire hose at times. These little moments are quite fun to see play out again in video game form. Long story short, Nat is fine. They realize that this mysterious boy is an android, although they keep calling him a robot, and take him back to Earth in secret, stashing him in Riko's room, which also so happens to be a torture chamber. Yeah, that's a bit screwed up, right? I head back downstairs, turn my quest in. Again, I will admit it is quite neat to be able to explore these spaces in 3D. And then I head back up to Reg to hopefully get this game moving. We get another neat little cinematic showing us that Riko and her chums accidentally electrocute the android boy, waking him up and possibly erasing his memory, although this is never explained and still hasn't really been solved in the manga either. We get some more cinematics showing us okay cliff notes. Riko conceals Reg for a while, and eventually he is accepted as another orphan. We get a few more quests, this time to kill some more man-toyers and gather some stuff. So back to the abyss we go. Well, that was easy. And before you know it, there's a time skip, and we get back to the main story, with Riko learning about her mother, a white whistle called Liza, who appears to be dead or lost within the abyss, after venturing down while pregnant with Riko to find a powerful relic called the Unheard Bell. Her father, Talker, was killed on this expedition, and Liza remained. You know what? This stuff is complicated, so we'll deal with it when it comes up again. If you're really curious, I go through all of this stuff in my deep dive series, on the manga, not the game. You know what I mean. Anywho, let's go and see what Mom sent us. Skippity skip, but TLDR, Riko is given her mother's inert white whistle and decides to head down into the abyss on her own, well, on her own with Reg, to search for her due to a note that says, "At the Netherworld's bottom, I'll be waiting." I hate long goodbyes, so again, skippity skip. This is all pretty much weak source in the manga too, but it does give us a sense that Riko is a bit of a blasé moron, nonchalantly heading into dangers that she vastly underestimates. And, I guess that was all one big tutorial, as we now get a proper intro cinematic, and it's an absolute banger. Sadly, I can't play the song for you, as I'm sure it'll get claimed in a heartbeat, but fine. I am so on board now. Can't wait to see the stuff ahead. And the map goes all the way down to layer 5. So we're doing the first season of the anime. right? Hype. Let's do this. Back down in the abyss, we now have Reg as a permanent sidekick. He's fine, but has two major problems. The first is that Reg is kind of a psychopath and will attack anything in sight, which is fine, I guess, as the worst that can happen is him being temporarily knocked out. The second problem, well, I hope this is patched eventually, but something causes him to constantly spout the same lines of dialogue at all times. In the English dub, this is heinous. It's a little bit more tolerable in the Japanese release, but it's still grating as balls. Regardless, our first goal is Jumping Rock, the entrance to Layer 2, and far beyond, where a pair of novice red whistles should be going. On our way, we meet a new enemy, the Vine Stopper, or as I like to call them, flower turrets. They're immobile, and occasionally spit out a little low-damage projectile. Not much of a threat unless you miss one, and it starts plinking away at you while you're climbing or exhausted, especially when you're trying to shake off the curse mid-climb. On the other hand, ooh, that's a hammerbeak. Big, nasty, dangerous birds. But it looks like it's part of the scenery, so let's hope it doesn't. Ah, what the hell? And I take my first major hit of the run and need to change my underpants. As you'll see going forwards, the trash mobs like the Mantoyas and Vine Stoppers aren't much of a threat, but the actual primeval creatures can totally push your shit in if you're not careful. Most of them do at least a third of your HP and damage, sometimes more than half, and occasionally a straight up one-hit kill. Watch your feet, watch the skies, watch your surroundings. Before we know it, my nerves have calmed down, and we're at Jumping Rock. It's time to head deeper into the abyss. The next zone, the Stone Ark, has yet another enemy, the Stinger. Something between a hummingbird and a mosquito. They are not very dangerous, but they're fast and tend to swarm around you, being hard to hit. Reg is pretty useful here, I'll say that much. Stingers also have a fun mechanic. If you dodge them, they will literally peg their beaks into nearby objects, and you can then take them out at your leisure or just run away. That's pretty cool. Another weird mechanic is that stinger corpses seem to be able to hurt you. Sometimes. Fortunately, health is pretty easy to restore. Bandages are bloody effective, and you can also pick up hemostasis herbs, little green aloe things that are scattered all over the place. You also need to keep food in mind, and eating heals you. So you're balancing two bars, hunger and health. Neither are much of a problem yet, as food is plentiful, and the small penalty you pay for transitioning between zones is nothing. That said, I hear an odd sound and decide to explore a bit. Oh, crikey Moses, yeah, let's not bother with that lobstrosity yet. Instead, I head further down, deeper and deeper. One nice thing about having Reg is that he can use his extendo arms to basically function as a rope. I must say, at this point I am actually having fun. The abyss is a nice balance of creepy and mysterious. The difficulty isn't severe yet, but I've been challenged once or twice. I wonder what lies ahead. As we proceed further in, we creep past a hammerbeak and are attacked by a silkfang, a big, nasty, spider-like creature. Okay, boss time. Wait, it's just a quick time event. Boo! We get some cinematics. Turns out that the teachers are aware that Rico went below, and they'll be coming after her. All this actually does is give us a brief interlude with Hubble. Yeah, he's actually a fan of her little adventure, but man, that face is cursed. He tells her to get down below quickly and to seek out the, well, seeker camp down in the inverted forest at the end of the second layer. Okay then. Shortly after this, we encounter a new enemy, and probably the most obnoxious thing that this game has to offer, at least thus far. I can't scan them to give you the correct name, and according to Pooty Spaghetti, our resident Maiden Abyss scholar, they're a new addition. I call them bamboo mines, and they are bullshit on toast. Walk over the tiny, indistinct spikes on the floor, and boom, you've got yourself a pneumatic enema. Avoid these at all costs as they're almost a one-hit kill. Oh, and before you try it, you cannot stealth over them. Yeah, screw these things. Your best bet is to approach them carefully, which can trigger them safely. They'll crumble, but they'll respawn pretty fast. Honestly, just avoid them. These frigging things accounted for more than half my deaths, as the game loves to put them in dark areas where there's no way to see them first time, or in a zone full of dangerous enemies. That's just sadistic. Regardless, we bypass them and enter the second layer. The first zone is called the Forest of Temptation, and this is where the game, to be frank, starts to lose me a little bit. First up, this zone is fugly. I think it's the lighting and the colours, all very flat and washed out. I was actually tempted to fire up ye old reshade here to bump up the vibrancy, but I decided to show you the game as is, warts and all. I may revisit this decision later. Layer 2 is much more dangerous. First up, we get another enemy type, pupa carriers. Irritating moths that appear here and there, and I still have absolutely zero idea how these things work. They seem to phase in and out, appearing randomly, and have a highly telegraphed attack that can inflict poison, which we have no way to remove, so avoid them. Fortunately, they aren't much of a threat unless you're already fighting something or are in the middle of a tough climb. The Forest of Temptation is infested with these, stingers, and vine stoppers, but they're easy enough to bypass. We soon hear a voice calling out for help. You should know exactly what this is. Can we finally get a boss fight? Nope. It's another QuickTime event, right in the middle of a cinematic that caught me with a cup in my hand and a mouthful of coffee. But a quick reload later, we get to see the admittedly really cool incinerator effect, and before too long, we're on our way down again, to the inverted forest to find Orzin. Oh yeah, those things, those are corpse weepers. They're kind of like the vines from that pretty cool Ruins movie. You know, the ones that mimic their victims in order to lure prey closer. This next bit though, ooh, this is evil. To reach the inverted forest, I need to get Reg to abseil us down to a lower plateau, which looks to be infested with these bloody cursed deer things called horn criers. They don't look too bad, so let's do this. And I get one shot the second I land, before I can even dodge. And this gives me my first death of the run that wasn't me cocking up a QTE. This is pretty cool though. If you're killed by a named mob, you get a rather dark little fatality sequence. Oh, there you are, Tsukushi, you sicko. This one I saw a handful of times, because the second I landed, boom, insta-killed by a horn crier. Oh joy, some unapologetic jank. Then I decided to try it differently, and figured out that, yeah, I needed to wait until the thing's back was turned, but who knows, I may just have lucked out. I ran for the exit and Reg, are you... Okay, whatever. You have fun, mate. I'm headed down into the crap part of the game. But before we deal with that cavalcade of nonsense, let's take us a little break.
Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
And we are back. The inverted forest. Okay, I will be generous here and say it looks like complete arse. As soon as we arrive, we are beset by Inbyo, Yeti-like gorilla things, or perhaps gorilla-like Yeti things, that throw... All I can say is that I hope it's a rock. Welcome to the inverted forest. The place where I nearly straight up binned this game. It's a confusing mess of branches, bowl-like canopies, and trunks. It looks ugly as sin, and is filled with monsters that should all be named Do Not Mess With Me. Spike walkers are the first threat. They look like little harmless hedgehog things, but they are not. They have a very fast and very nasty unavoidable melee attack that deals a healthy chunk of damage, and as they don't seem to have a pain state, you're basically attacking an enemy with a thorns effect. Just treat them like hazards and go around. However, Reg does not like these little hedgehog jerks and will frequently KO himself attempting to punch them to death. Did Mitty do the AI for this game by any chance? On arrival, I immediately head in the opposite direction and get a prompt to go up. Okay, this takes a while because I'm waiting out the curse, but when I eventually make it to the top, it's a dead end. Can't go this way. Yeah, this is just great design, but fine. My goal is that whistle on the map, so I go the other way and move downwards, which in turn leads me back up. And this goes on for a while. Tedious climbs interspersed with me waiting for the curse to recede. Fortunately, there's nothing poking my ass while I'm climbing, so it's not hard to just hang around and let the curse expire. Pro tip, the second the depth gauge turns white again, you're good to go, even if the curse visual has not vanished. So up and down, and up and down, and sometime later I think I finally figured out where I'm supposed to go, and then I run into an Inbyo, those monkey things from earlier. It appears to just be a passive part of the scenery, but remembering the hammerbeak from earlier, I'm still careful. And then I get stuck with no obvious path forward, and I am now getting rather annoyed with this game. I wander around for a while and then something hits me. It does a rather disturbing amount of damage. It's the Inbyo, so they can attack. Ugh. I pull back and cook up some abomination meat, heal up, and try to figure out just what the bloody hell I'm supposed to do. And yes, I know people that have finished this are screaming right now. Let's take a look. After a frankly embarrassing amount of time wandering back and forth and exploring every inch of the area, I decide to go back and investigate the dead end where I got smacked by the Inbyo last time. I remember that holding X causes you to stealth. A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Please don't throw your poop at me. Wait, what's happening? Oh! Seriously, who designed this? Well, that was dumb, and if I hadn't literally stumbled onto it, I would still be running around in this dead zone. Ah. Anyway, I decide, sod it. Run past the Inbyo and the stingers, and Rico and Reg enter Hell's Crossing, which is infested with those frigging from a Buick 8 birds. And as I skate through, a bunch of weird green gunk forms around me. What is that? Is that a bug? Is it coming from that plant? Crap, Red killed it. Thanks. After a pretty painful climb that nearly has me fall to my death, I meet another new creature, the Yomotsubi. Think one of the Sonic tanks from Dune 2. It fires a beam that does a decent wodge of damage and kind of rotates around. As with most creatures, get in behind it and it goes down easy. I also finally get a look at that green thing from earlier. It's called a Vine Blaster and works a bit like Doom's Archvile. When you're nearby, it'll summon a big cloud of acid around you, and if you stay in the cloud, it's ouchie time. I explore a bit further, and I finally see, oh no, you are actually kidding, right? There's no way you'd make me climb that, because it's just going to be climb, wait, climb, wait, climb, wait. Now, I've heard that there is a shortcut around this part, but I spent a good 10 minutes looking for it and I didn't see it. Of course, I may just be an idiot, but I don't know. So guess what I did? I climbed and waited, and climbed and waited, and cooked and ate and climbed and waited, and seriously, this is a pointless, time-extending bit of bullshit that serves no purpose other than wasting my day. Ooh.
That's a paddling.
Once I reach the top, guess what? All the way back down again. But good news, those wooden platforms probably mean people, which in turn probably means the Seeker Camp, which means I can maybe get out of this horrible place. But first... Oh man, so I take one look at the lineup here. Spike Walkers, Yomotsubi, Inbyo, Vine Blasters, and I go bollocks to it. Run on through, and I make it. Cursed to the gills, low on food, but relatively unscathed. And at last, we're here. There's a few more mobs to sneak by, we get a few short cinematics, and soon enough we enter the Seeker Camp. Wait, that's your model? Ooh, that's cursed. Not the most cursed thing to happen to Ozen, but pretty close. After some more cinematics, weird, her model becomes a lot better somehow. Maybe it's the angle. See, again, she looks pretty good here. Neither the anime nor the manga really captured just how ridiculously tall this relic-wielding muscle mommy is, and it's pretty neat to see her here. Okay, let's get through this bit of fluff and head on down to layer 3, which, if you remember, is the point where the manga really took off. You know, Orb Piercer, horrible arm stuff, the Nachi, and then down to Bondrude. Cannot wait. I mean, even with the jank, this is slowly starting to grab me by the fanboy organs and tug. Little did I know what lay ahead of me. We get a bit of dialogue, which does closely follow the manga. Orzin is kind of a bitch, but at least her apprentice Murulk is nice, and this character is a can of worms that I kind of dodged past in the manga, and I'm going to dodge past it here too. Essentially, Orzin's trainee, apparently pretty skilled despite, their age, and rather friendly, all things considered. Orzin decides that she wants to talk to us again, and fans of the manga are now rubbing their hands in anticipation. Sure enough, we're introduced to the curse-repelling vessel, or as I like to call it, the butthole box. And this is the first time that the vibration thingy in my controller actually goes off, right on top of my, fanboy organs, which caused me to spill coffee all over my damn keyboard. Thanks, Ozen. An hour later, I've cleaned up and we can get back to the game. Despite me being curious about the rest of the story and the execution here, I'm unimpressed so far. I am playing this as a fan game. It's janky, it has too many bits that seem designed to break the flow of the game, it's more than occasionally irritating, and it's really restrictive. Even now, basically nothing you can mine or gather is useful in any way. It only takes up weight. About the only things worth touching are food and healing items. Weak sauce. But, well, I'm enough of a Made in Abyss fanboy to keep pushing forward, so let's see if it gets any better. At least we're finally entering the dark parts of the story. You know, the bit where, at the urging of his publisher, Tsukushi gave us a massive amping up of the dark stuff, started to put Rico through complete hell, and also introduced everyone's favorite bunnykins. This is about all that's keeping me going right now. The discussion continues, with Ozen getting nastier and nastier, much as she did in the manga, telling Rico that she's basically a zombie. Now, unfortunately, this skips over one of the freakiest moments in the manga, where Ozen used the relic to resurrect her dinner, but whatever. And we don't even get spooky Ozen face. Not even once. Boo! But like in the manga, Ozen appears to go straight nutty buddies, and we get an actual boss fight. Brilliant. Except now we're playing as Reg? Alright. He's quite different to Rico. Infinite stamina, and you can hold down the attack button to charge his arms and release it for a ranged attack. Ozen is rather easy once you get the hang of her attacks. In close, she'll do a grab that'll mess you right up, and it's really hard to dodge. At range, she'll do a dash that gives you just enough time to dodge away. So stay away from her and chip her down with Reg's charged 1-2 punch. Or don't, because this is a made-to-lose fight, and whether you beat her or don't even try, it plays out the exact same. Weak. But for the sake of pride, let's kick her ass.
Flawless victory.
It's not bad for a first boss fight, despite the fact that you can't actually lose. The music is pretty dope, and we get some decent cinematics. Huh. Okay, game. I guess that last bit was just a rough patch, and now we're getting to the good stuff. Anyway, despite my flawless victory, it turns out that Reg and Rico get their cheeks clapped by Ozen, but are sort of saved by Marulk, who got Ozen's mates to come and stop her from going too far. After a lot more dialogue, we get the next story beat from the manga, Ozen's training, in which she sends Reg and Rico out into the wilderness at the very end of the second layer to survive. This is mostly a massive tutorial segment to show us the more advanced elements of the game. I'll allow it, but 2 hours in is a bit late for a tutorial, you know. But I guess that we're now getting into more systems like crafting, which we'll need on the lower layers. Fine, and I'll say fine because this entire area is pretty damn awesome. It looks great, has an amazing atmosphere, and an utterly perfect soundtrack. I probably can't play it for you, but it's this really eerie ambient guitar that reminds me quite a bit of Matt Wheelman. Huh, when did this game become kind of good? So I jump through the various prescribed hoops. I harvest some healing herbs, mine some stone, make a hatchet, and kill a few moths, all whilst avoiding the bamboo mines scattered throughout the area, some of which are in really dick spots. I also figure out that my R3 turns my light on, which helps. This time I only get hit by those bastard things once. With all that done, stage 2 of the training, we fish, we cook, and then we go looking for something called a croaker. These big froggos may look harmless, but they are really, really dangerous. Do not screw around with them. They didn't manage to get it off here, but if you let them, they will fire a large projectile that applies a permanent ticking poison to you that right now you have absolutely no way of dispelling, and you'll basically need to constantly use healing items. If you get tagged with this, pro tip, just reload. Otherwise, stay behind them, play conservatively, and they'll go down after a good few hits. Once we've killed 3, we get our final training objective: to hunt and kill an Autobus, one of those hippo-like monsters we saw briefly in the series. And as we leave the area, a much nastier frog variation spawns. The jumpers. Ooh boy, stay away from these. They deal a ton of damage with their 1-2 punch of leap and dash. Just leave them alone. The Autobus is back at our fishing lake, and after dealing with its poop, yeah, I'm glad we didn't eat anything from that lake, it emerges, looking rather intimidating, and it's a pushover. Stay on its flanks, get out of range when it rolls, and you're golden. At low health, it does a QTE charge that actually got me on the first go, but second try I nail it, and finally, we're done with the training. Okay, on to layer 3. Let's go. We get a long-ass dialogue sequence with Ozen, where she talks about a bunch of stuff, including the odd temporal anomalies in the lower layers, which is where we are bound. Apparently time moves differently down there. Okay, we also get, oh yeah, now we're cooking with napalm. Ozen gives us the same warning as in the manga. There are other white whistles down there. Wakuno, Srajo, and Bondrude. Oh yeah, Bondrude, you are going to be a cool boss, I'm sure. Riko also gets Blaze Reap, her legendary explosive pickaxe. Can't wait to try that out on one of those frog bastards. And after rather a lot of dialogue later, we get a really affecting little cinematic, where Reg and Riko say farewell to everyone from the Seeker camp as they prepare to head down into the Great Fault of Layer 3, where, as fans of the series know, the story gets way better and way darker. This is the turning point, where the series went from kind of generic fantasy to, well, made in Abyss. At long last, this game is going to kick things into high gear. It was a bit of a slog getting here, but the last area was dope and... Wait, what the Wazukian is going on? What's with the music? And... credits? But we're just about to enter layer 3. Yeah, when I first saw this happen, I was somewhere between annoyed and enraged. Enroyed? That's terrible. Because, yeah, this is the ultimate weak sauce. I actually wondered if I'd done something wrong and took an optional early exit or something, or maybe somehow had it set to an easy difficulty. But nope, this is where the so-called Hollow Abyss ends. So, no Orb Piercer, no Nanachi, no Prushka, no Bondrude, none of that cool stuff. And at 2 hours 11 minutes in, it was just outside of the cutoff for refunding. Well played, I guess. You bastard of a game. To quote Reg, this is irredeemable. Then something occurred to me. There were 2 modes at the selection screen, one of which was locked off. What I thought was the main story, and the other mode, Deep in Abyss, which I had no real interest in. It was barely a part of the advertising. See, this is what anime adaptations tend to do. You've got the recap of the actual story taking up maybe 90% of the runtime. And then once you're done, you've got some cute wonky little side story that tends to be a filler arc in the anime later, or sometimes a free roam mode as a post-game extra. Well, fine. I want to try and squeeze one last video out of this game, so let's go and poop on that, and then we can end the series. Sweet as. Right? Right? In the before times, in the long, long ago, I almost envy my former self. I had no idea that the true darkness was waiting for me deep below, because underneath this terrible little game was an actual game, a game that would come very close to breaking me. But that's a story for another time. Well, that's the video. I hope you enjoyed it, and whether you did or not, thanks for watching. If you did enjoy it, why not stick around? There's all kinds of cool shit coming down the pipes, and a fair amount of existing content for you to enjoy. If you want to help myself or Mrs. Owl out, whether it be improving our setup, helping to pay our rent, or helping to pay off this dumb game, you could always head over to our Patreon. And if you want to give feedback, shoot the shit, or make suggestions, why not come over to our Discord? It's actually been pretty damn fun. Anyway, cheers, take care my friends. This is the Owl, signing off.